The Pacers hang tough with the defending champs, but come up just short 119-109. Going to break down all of Pacers Bucks, how the Pacers defended Giannis, and some of the center minutes from that game, plus a big decision in the last one of the Pacers offseason coming up around Goga Bitadze's contract. We'll break it all down today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers as always. My name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and the West Side Community News, and today I am flying solo to talk Pacers Bucks, all the action from last night. Pacers made the defending champs sweat, but could not quite pull it off in a home game. It was a close one. It was one of their actually better performances of the season despite the loss, so lots to get to from that game. Again, I want to talk about how the Pacers defended the former Finals MVP, two-time MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo, and some minute stuff going on with the centers on this Pacers team. And then Goga Bitadze, season debut against the Bucks. I want to talk about an upcoming big date for him and the Pacers as they make their kind of final move of this offseason as they go into the season and they can really settle their roster for this season. And next, let's start with the game. No, the big thing, playing against the defending champs at home, big opportunity for the Pacers to gauge where they're at. And it was an interesting game. You know, the final score says the Pacers lost by 10, and most of the game, I would say they were hovering around that 7 to 12 point deficit. There were moments in the third quarter where the Bucks got up by as much as 18, but I would say the final score is pretty reflective of how the game went, where the Pacers, were fighting and they were in it and they were making it very interesting, but couldn't quite pull it off. But it got really close at one point in the fourth quarter. The Pacers got it down to, I believe, 5 with about 5 minutes to go in this game. It was looking like they had a shot to come all the way back and make it a game. It was 116. I can't remember exactly. It was 102-109 with 5:31 to go. It was 102-107 just before that. So it was down to 5. And then there was this really long shuffle on the floor, and there was a double tech between Goga Bitadze and George Hill from the Bucks. And it took so long to sort it out that, the Pacers, I was there at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. There was all this energy in the building, and people were psyched about the upcoming and currently ongoing comeback. And then all that energy got sucked out, including from the game. It really slowed the Pacers, and they were not able to quite get the energy back that they had that got them, to cut it to that 5-point game after a Justin Holiday 3. And so they stumbled the rest of the way. They ended up losing by 10. And I think that's a fine result, losing by 10 to the defending champs when Giannis is playing the way he was. He finished with 30 points, 10 rebounds, 9 assists, 1 assist away from a triple-double. Chris Middleton was hitting shots from all over the court, including a masterful buzzer beater at the end of the first quarter. He finished with 25 points, 5 rebounds, and 7 assists. When those two guys are that good, it's hard to beat the Bucks. And then Grayson Allen hitting 4 threes, Pat Connaughton hitting 3 threes. They got what they needed. They got their stars to play awesome, and they got their shooters to shoot. And so that's the recipe for the Bucks to be awesome, and the Pacers couldn't defeat that recipe, right? And that's what you got to do. If you can't stop Giannis, and they tried, right? The plan was, and I'll talk more about this in the next segment, load up on him, have backside help ready to go. They got better at this in the fourth quarter, but they couldn't do it the whole game. And so if you can't stop him, you have to stop the shooters. They did neither. So the Pacers deserve to lose, assuredly, and I think the score reflected that. But something else they can hang their hats on, despite playing pretty well, I think, for a lot of the game. The things I just said made it sound like they played bad, but they shut down a lot of other guys and had some nice defensive moments. At least they held Giannis to 55% shooting, which is a success against him. Middleton just above 50. Everybody else on the Bucks outside of Giannis Antetokounmpo below 50. And the Pacers had a good third quarter for the first time all season. They're their second best scoring output of the game in the third quarter with 29 points. So they still lost the frame, but much better than third quarters they've been having all season. Nice to see them at least put up a fight in that frame. If they had that third quarter that they had against the Bucks today against either Washington or Charlotte, they would have won either of those games with this third quarter. They at least were putting the ball in the basket for a little bit. So on the Pacers side, statistically, Brogden and Sabonis were both great on offense. Sabonis shot 8 of 13, 21 points, 13 rebounds, and 5 assists, was really controlling the game. And you could tell the Bucks' length gave the Pacers some troubles. Sabonis had 3 turnovers. He's been a little turnover prone this season, but he mostly kept it in check and was doing. They did a good job of even the whole game, including the third quarter, continuing to get him some touches within 10 feet where he can, at least read and react and still be the Domas Sabonis that can score and finish and be effective. And then Brogdon was really turnover guilty in this game. He had 7. It was weird. He's normally very patient, and today he was still patient at times. He had a nice game still, 25 points, 4 rebounds, 7 assists, but there were random moments where he would try to be really assertive, and the Bucks' length really makes that hard for him, and he had some errant passes that went awry. Outside of those two guys, no one was super supremely awesome on offense. The Bucks, again, a very, very good defensive team. It's not like the Pacers were bad on offense. In fact, against the Bucks, you could argue they played a decent offensive game. Duarte finished with 18. It took him 16 shots to do it. But he was mostly effective. They were only -1 in his minutes, and he played pretty well. 44% shooting, hit 2 threes, was pretty good. Justin Holiday took all of his shots from deep, by the way. I like his shot profile quite a bit in the Rick Carlisle system. His diet of offense has been fascinating. He only took threes in this game. He took 9 of them. The Pacers took 36. He made 4, so he finished with 12 points, some big threes in the fourth quarter of this game. But he, for the offense he can provide and help the Pacers and deservedly getting minutes, his skinny frame holds him back in some matchups, and a lot of those matchups are present against the Bucks. It's really hard to give him the minutes that he should get most games against the Bucks. He ended up playing 38 minutes in this game. The Pacers lost those minutes by 11, right? So that means the 10 minutes and 8 seconds Justin Holiday did not play, the Pacers won those minutes. So I don't think he played necessarily poorly. It's just sort of an awkward matchup fit for him and fit within the rest of the Pacers lineups in this game. But the Pacers bench continues to be something that I'm surprised by its ineffectiveness. Their bench has been something they can hang their hat on in recent seasons, and Bjorkgren got really good at mixing and matching the right center with the second unit to prop that unit up, and Nate McMillan obviously got a ton out of that second group. McConnell once again kind of struggled, 7 points, 3 assists, -16. His minutes were really tough in this game. The stuff he's normally good at, he can't do as much in the way the Pacers are playing this year. Brissett was much less effective this game than he was just 2 nights ago against Miami. Jeremy Lamb's defense continues to be a liability. So I didn't get enough from those guys in general. Lamb's 11 points were fine, and his minutes typically have gone well, actually, for the Pacers recently, because his offensive off-the-dribble threat does still help them in a team setting. So he was okay. He helped them win his minutes, but his defense continues to hold him back. And then Goga, got to talk about Goga. Goga gets his first big minutes of the season. Miles Turner fouls led to that happening. He had 2 in the first roughly 3 minutes. Turner finished with 3 fouls, only played 14 minutes in this game. Goga plays 17 and a half, scored 7 points in the first about 2 minutes he played, and looked fantastic. And then couldn't score the rest of the game, missed the rest of his shots. So his scoring outburst was very limited to an early portion of the game, but 7 offensive rebounds from Goga. He finished with 7 points, 9 rebounds, an assist, and 2 steals. He actually was very good and effective in this game. And the big change for the Pacers that got them from down 10, down 12, struggling to catch up, to down 5 with a chance to strike and catch up to the Bucks was Carlisle went with the lineup in the fourth quarter of Sabonis and Bitadze to really clog the paint, really hammer home the defense on Giannis and make other guys beat them, and it worked really well. Those two played fantastic. Goga, again, was cleaning up the boards, and Sabonis was finishing, and Goga was just enough of a threat and strength early in the game that he was still getting the respect from the Bucks defense to make the offense work. So he had a really nice game. Goga was fantastic. In his 17 and a half minutes, the Pacers won those minutes by 2 points. So credit to him for coming in on his debut and being completely ready to play physically, be a force right when he comes in the game. He was the best bench player for the Pacers in this game. And then Tory Craig played for 6.5 minutes. I will talk, not at length, but I'll talk a little bit about him next segment. Nothing noteworthy from him, really. 1 rebound, no other stats. So I think his role is kind of settled into the last guy in the Pacers rotation right now. We'll see what happens when Karis LeVert comes back. Also more on him later. So in general, they got their 4 starters who played healthy minutes or over 30 minutes. Justin Holiday, Chris Duarte, Domantas Sabonis, and Malcolm Brogdon all played well and fit into what the Pacers wanted to do strategically this game and help them push this game to being close. And the bench just did not give the Pacers enough in this game. They couldn't quite find the right combinations and defensive bursts to really hammer this game along and catch up to the Bucks. So it's going to be tough. I don't know if that's a rotation change from Carlisle. I don't know if it's just the Pacers establishing what they wanted to do on Giannis defensively earlier in the game, because they clearly found a plan that worked in the fourth quarter. But there were ways that, if they restarted this game with the knowledge they have now, they could have maybe played this one out better. And they were certainly hanging around the whole game. So they had at least a somewhat effective game plan, but just not quite perfect. One of those things where if they had one of Warren or LeVert, certainly wouldn't have been a different story. So, losing by 10 to the defending champs at home, it stings a little, but they truly played. I think they played better in this game than they did, for example, against the Wizards, where their defense was just absolutely atrocious. At least they had some solid defensive moments in this game, and their offense looked capable even against a very, very good defensive Bucks team. I would say they played better in this game than they did last Friday. So how did they defend Giannis? That's a big thing for this team that's really struggled to defend these bigger forwards. I talk about this on so many episodes of the show. I feel like I'm overdoing it, but it's important to look at how they did that. It was, they played Hayward, so they've kind of, and Butler, so they've kind of had opportunities with these forwards, but Giannis is an even bigger deal. How do they defend Giannis? And some center stuff. I still have stuff to talk about from this game, but first I want to talk to you guys about the great people over at DirecTV Stream, because this might sound familiar to you. You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that you can stream your favorite shows on. You watch sports highlights on your phone, you've got your best friend's login for all your shows and the good stuff. Well, there's a simpler way to get all that entertainment you love without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream. It brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch all your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, no annual contract. Get rid of the clutter and the confusion. Get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. Thank you for making Locked On Pacers your first listen today. How did the Pacers defend Giannis? Why does it matter? Well, first of all, if you want to be a legitimate threat to win the title or win the East, you got to find a way to slow down Giannis somewhat. They did, in fact, win the championship last year because absolutely no one could stop him. The Bucks tried Blake Griffin and some gimmicky stuff that didn't quite work. There was no answers from the Suns. They tried Tory Craig, who we'll talk about momentarily, and that kind of worked, but not really. How did the Pacers try to slow down Giannis? Before the game, Rick Carlisle talked about not sending two guys, but having a guy in the wake to shadow and help out the guy who is guarding Giannis. You kind of need two guys close to the ball there, and they were really pressuring up on him when he would catch on the perimeter. And sometimes if you sag off, Giannis will shoot. Goga was effective at that. I don't know if that was part of the game plan, but it was something he did kind of particularly well. But they were up on him, and they were kind of slow to send that second guy until the fourth quarter. So their game plan, I think they had one, but they didn't get to it, or they didn't do it effectively until late in the game. But in general, they did okay. You look at his stat line and you think, how did the Pacers do okay defending him? He was 10 of 18, he had 13 free throw attempts, he had 30 points. How did they do okay? Well, making him miss 8 times is tough. They definitely made him uncomfortable at times, and I think you would live with Giannis taking 13 free throws. I was talking with David Woods from the Indy Star up in the media row right at the beginning of the game. I said, I think my strategy just kind of beat the crap out of him, have some guys soak up fouls. So how they defend him really matters, because they need plans to defend him, and we need to know how the Pacers want to deploy defending some of these bigger forwards. I talked about this a lot, right? And Tory Craig was a guy that I talked about in the context of his signing this summer a lot, that he really helps the Pacers because he's good at that. They haven't had a guy since Thad Young who can guard. Giannis is the most extreme example. They call him the Greek freak for a reason. He's a freak. He is an absolute force athletically, size-wise. He can take a step that's 15 feet long when he's running. That's only slightly exaggerating, which is the crazy part, right? He is the epitome of all the challenges of defending these guys for the Pacers. So Tory Craig, I thought, would be a guy that played a little more this game than he did last game, maybe. And when he wasn't, was frequently guarding Giannis. And he played 6.5 minutes, the lowest of any Pacer who played in this game, the lowest of any Pacer, excuse me. And didn't guard Giannis at all when he was in the game. He guarded Chris Middleton most of the time he was in the game, and that's also fine. You're still putting him on a guy that fits the bill of a bigger forward and a guy that the Pacers have struggled with. But I was still surprised that they did that they didn't put Tory Craig on Giannis to at least try to see how that defense would work, to at least see if he can be the guy that, really helps you finally stop this guy. And they didn't go to it at all. I was surprised by that. They did try a lot of Sabonis. That was okay. Sabonis has the girth to kind of slow him down a little bit. Last year, I talked a few times about that. They tried Turner to start the game, and Turner did what I thought the Pacers should do. No, like Turner's stat line looks bad because he fouled and didn't play very much, but just foul him a lot. Like, he's worse at free throws than scoring efficiently. In this game, he was not. That was not true, but that's how I would have done it. But Turner, also lacking the strength that Sabonis has, couldn't quite stand far from all the time. So I thought we'd see more Craig, or they'd try that. It did not work. Goga did a very good job on Giannis for a few stretches this game. He's also got kind of the girth to do it. So what we kind of learned is Giannis might be an outlier from this big forward thing for the Pacers, but it seems like Sabonis, Craig, and Goga against the guys that play forward center might be some answers, and then Craig can be more of an answer for the perimeter-minded guys, right? That's why they put him on Middleton. That's why he can be an answer against your Gordon Haywards and your Jimmy Butlers, who are more likely to take a jumper and be a threat from more than 10 feet from the basket. And Giannis is getting better at his jumpers, but he certainly still is better near the basket than far from the basket. Speaking of Miles Turner and his fouls, a lot of talk about his minutes this season, and rightfully so after this game, because it's been fascinating to see how his season has developed. I'm pulling up his basketball reference page for those who can see me on YouTube and see me typing, right? Because if you pull up his game log, it's very confusing. 26 minutes, against the Hornets, 44 minutes against the Wizards, 16 against the Heat, and then just 14 against the Bucks. What? That's very confusing, right? 5 fouls against the Heat. We all get it, right? And Carlisle even said it after the game. I wanted to play him more. He had 5 fouls. It's not awkward. It's just what it is. And Carlisle's more conservative than Bjorkgren was with fouls. If guys, I don't know if it's quarter plus one or what his math is to determine this stuff, but roughly quarter plus one, he'll take you out a little earlier than you think. Turner has 2 fouls in the first half and was a little ineffective offensively, so he went with Goga, who was playing very well. And so I get it in that context. But just in the general consensus of Turner minutes, I think Carlisle needs to be a little more freeing with the foul counts and let Turner play a little more through them. We've seen Turner fight off foul counts in the past. Against Giannis, totally different story. Giannis is going to make you drop fouls anyway, and you can't just lose the option that early in the game, so I get it. Turner picked up his third foul in the third quarter, and then I don't know if he came in the rest of the game. Goga played almost the whole fourth quarter, and again, that lineup with him and Sabonis was working extremely well. I do not blame Carlisle at all for sticking with it, but yeah, Turner's minutes are just bizarre, and I know fouls have been a big factor, and I get that Carlisle is pretty conservative with how he handles guys, their fouls, and their minutes after they get into foul trouble, but it seems like he's a little too reactive to the game and the foul count on the sheet in front of him and not going back to the more talented players. And this, look, I don't want to act like I know more than Rick Carlisle. In fact, he's lauded as this for a reason, as one of the guys who in the middle of the game can make the smartest tactical decisions for a basketball team in the whole league, right? The NBA GM survey points that out. His history points that out. So I don't want to be like, what is he thinking? But I do think when we're getting to the point where, Jeremy Lamb's playing in the crunch time of that first game instead of Turner, and then against the Heat, he barely played in the overtime. And then, I get Goga playing for a big stretch of the fourth over Turner. He was outplaying him in this game. Like, I understand. Play the better player. You're losing. But there's a point where you need your best defender in the game, or you need a guy to soak up fouls against Giannis, and you're not doing that as much. And I keep being a little surprised. I get Goga in this game. Pacers blog Derek Kramer and I were messaging about this after the game, and I said, this is not the game where I agree with people as much that Turner should have played, but against the Heat, he probably should have played more. We saw what happens when he's really unleashed against the Wizards. That's definitely not going to be the normal for him this season, but I think that Carlisle needs to not completely rethink, but just slightly reevaluate the Turner minutes and how he's getting him time on the court. And try to, even if he's in foul trouble, be a little less stringent on that, and then also try to find a way to make sure he's playing 20 to 25 at a minimum minutes, because he is one of the best defensive players in basketball, and we've seen what he can do when he's totally unleashed. So I think Turner should play more. And to Turner's side, he's got to stop fouling as much. He's had some rough matchups, surely. Like the Hornets just went at him. And there was terrible point of attack defense against the Hornets and Wizards, which puts a lot of the onus on Turner to stop those attacks at the basket. He might foul a lot. I get it. That's not always on him. That can be on the guards, and he just has to bail him out. And Giannis is a hard matchup. Like, those 3 games make sense. The Heat one is a little weird, though, even though Bam likes to punk him. Like, he between a combo of bad matchups and bad point of attack defense, it makes sense why he's had all these fouls, and yet still would be better for the team if he's able to clean them up. So that's Turner's next thing. Can he clean up those fouls? Can he make it happen? Can he get more minutes? And Carlisle's got to be less strict with those minutes to me. But Goga got to play today as a result of this, and now I get to talk about Goga and a little bit about Caris LeVert and his injury update. So let's do that really quick. But first, let me talk to you guys about the great folks over at BetOnline.ag. They are back and better than ever. They have a new web interface for the start of basketball season and more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season. Head over to their new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today. You'll receive a 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit when you sign up. If you use the promo code LOCKEDON, you'll receive that bonus. They've got basketball lines and props on there, football lines and props, baseball as the World Series gets going. I hate the Braves. Please bet against the Braves. NHL, boxing, UFC, your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. Sign up with that promo code LOCKEDON today. BetOnline, where the game starts. Let's also talk about the good people over at rockauto.com, because there's so many makes and models of cars now. I saw an ad for a 2023 model of a car now. It's still 2021. It's so hard for your local chain store to keep up with all the parts you'll need for your car. And then when you get there, they never have the right one, even when you flip through the book for like 10 minutes. Why waste all that time when you have a computer with access to rockauto.com or in your pocket on your phone? You can save time and money at Rock Auto for the same parts that you could get at a chain store or dealership. Why would you not want to save time and money? They're a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Rock Auto prices are always reliably low for every customer. They have everything you could need for your vehicle. I encourage you to go check them out and explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box, so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need at rockauto.com. All right, last segment today. Let's talk about the latest on Caris LeVert's injury and Goga Bitadze's team option for upcoming seasons. First up, LeVert, his most recent scan on his back was yesterday, on Monday, the day of the Bucks game. Carlisle did not know or did not have the full scope of the results at the time of pregame when we had questioning with him. He could not share that yet. He said an update will be released probably Tuesday. If you're listening, it could already be out. So we'll know more about LeVert and his injury pretty soon and what his timetable could be for a potential return, but nothing at this time. Who knows what time of day it was at. Carlisle is focused on the game, so expect news on that very soon. That's a short update, but it's a better than nothing update. Let's talk about Goga. I'm writing an article about this. It should be out the same day you're listening. I'm so bad about that usually, but it is drafted. I just need to be a good editor for once. So Goga Bitadze, I did a segment on this about a month and a half ago, but now the deadline's coming up and Goga just played in his first game. So no time like the present to remind you all. So the deadline. So here's the situation. Goga Bitadze is on a rookie scale contract. How those work is they have a team option for their third and fourth season that you have to decide on a full year in advance for every first round pick. That is the case. And how it works is the deadline that's in the day is the end of October of a normal calendar league year. And this year is now a normal calendar league year. So the Pacers have until Sunday, October 31st, really the end of Sunday, to decide on Goga Bitadze's team option for the 2022-23 season, which is a full season away from right now. That's 2 seasons of Goga Bitadze. It's a $4.8 million team option. Goga, very very polarizing player amongst, the internet fans of the Pacers, which is surprising to me. Again, I thought he was pretty good against the Bucks. Showed off some offensive rebounding chops, was still good on defense where he usually thrives, but also showed the weaknesses that Kevin Pritchard talked about on media day. That they love Goga and his blocking and his defense, right? I'll have some stats on that in my piece that's out on Forbes today. But 2 for 8 shooting, hit his first 2 shots, missed his next 6, right? A lot of stuff that just doesn't make as much sense. So on offense, statistically for him, right? So the question is, should the Pacers commit 4.8 million to him next season? And it's weird to think about that because they're over the cap anyway. If they decline it or accept it, the Pacers will almost certainly be over the cap team next year. They'll only have access to the MLE, the BAE, and minimum contracts. So if they decline Bitadze's contract, they can't replace him with a different player worth $4.8 million. They can instead only replace him with a minimum salary player. So is he worth more than a minimum salary player at his roster spot? I would say yes. Even if the talent isn't there, and I think the talent is there, to be clear, but even if you're a person who doesn't think the talent is there with him, you'd rather, to me, invest a roster spot in a guy that you've spent years developing already and is young and has potential than just someone you're pulling in on a minimum deal. So even if he is more expensive, it's not your money. Who cares? You'd rather have the young guy with potential that the team has already spent time and development on. They understand who he is, what his background is, and stuff like that. So financially, the only way it would make sense to decline the option financially is if sometime during the season the Pacers make substantial cost-cutting trades. Like they would have to cut a lot of money off of next year's books to actually have cap space that is meaningful. And it's really hard to do that. There's not a lot of teams you can dump salary on at this point in the season. Not big enough trade exceptions or salary cap space is really out there for something like that. So financially, cutting Goga or declining the option, not cutting, excuse me, need to be very clear. Declining his option for next season doesn't make a lot of sense. If they do decline it and then he's awesome this year, they could only offer him that amount on the next deal, whereas other teams can offer him more. So that's another factor at play. And that factor is important because the biggest thing with Goga this year is probably the guys in front of him, Turner and Sabonis. This year, more than any year, and this will continue to be the case as time goes on, next year will be more than this year, the time to trade one of them is rapidly approaching. Turner only has a year and 1.95 years left on his deal now that he's played 4 games this season, right? Eventually, his contract will have such a short amount of time left that his value will drop substantially. So if they can't figure out the pairing this year with the centers, then it makes sense to move on from one or the other and commit to the other one. And if that happens, then go get $4.8 million to be your backup center is a steal of a deal, right? So just looking at from a team building perspective, financially and from a role perspective, there's a good chance that Goga is either worth the money or worth the roster spot. And so because of those reasons, which are the biggest things you think about with a team option, is how does it impact your team building? I think they will pick it up, and he played well in a game. They haven't done it yet, which means maybe they're waiting on something or they're still evaluating something. And if they're evaluating how he would play, the Bucks game, to me, would give me confidence to pick it up. But the other factor, the negative side, there are some. One is that he's never put it all together. There's a reason he's polarizing, right? Some fans just look at him and go, what is he doing? His screens aren't good. He can't finish, plays around the rim. He's flailing around sometimes. What is he doing? Like, I get it. He's not he's very inconsistent at this age. So I get that why fans might think that way at this time. The other thing is he doesn't play that much. So it's hard to like conceptualize bringing him back and like how that move would look, because you go back to that draft and he's picked 18th, and this might be another reason that there's some divisiveness and vitriol kind of around him. He was picked 18th, but as of right now, he has played the 33rd most minutes in his draft class, right? Outside the first round's worth of minutes. And he's played 100 games. He just played his 100th game, like on the dot, right? So he's slower on the playing time, and that's kind of because of the Pacers roster construction too, but they still might have that roster construction next year. So that's kind of a negative, and his situation's sort of weird, and Isaiah Jackson's right there too, right? Maybe you want to give him the backup center minutes. There's a lot of somewhat negative reasons to not do it, but to me, it's a team-building decision, and if you look at it from just a team-building perspective, there's not really a better way to have a depth center than a guy who is young, is getting better, that you've already invested resources in, and doesn't impact your spending power next season. Because while they won't have cap space, they'll be much farther from the tax next year with Lamb and Warren coming off the books. I'm sure they'd like to re-sign TJ Warren, but his price isn't going to be so much that the luxury tax is as much of a concern next year as it is now. Then the $4.8 million is not a big deal. It's just not a big deal unless they get really cheap. So unless there's something that changes, whether it's desire of one party to not be connected to the other, or they don't make a trade, or they really love Isaiah Jackson more than they're leading on. Unless something changes, to me, I think they will pick up Goga's team option for 2022-23, and that's it. They can finally dust off this summer, this offseason. They'll have their team set for this year, a lot of it set for next year. And then I can finally talk about basketball and stop talking about offseason stuff, but I am, in fact, writing about this. It was fresh on the brain. Goga played today. It seemed like a great time to talk about it. If you have questions about that, or if you think I left out an important detail, because I have been known to do that before, hit me up on Twitter at TEastNBA. If you're on YouTube, it's on this graphic right there. If you're not on YouTube, check us out on YouTube. You can see my face as I talk through these thoughts to myself. Tomorrow, Pacers play the Raptors. We'll be talking about what to watch for in that game later this week. Sean Woodley from Locked On Raptors will come on, and we'll chat more because they also play the Raptors this weekend. Of course, we'll be talking Nets later this week, another title contender. So look out for that. Adam is still on vacation, so you're going to get a lot of me this week. Hope that's okay with you guys. So again, back tomorrow to talk Pacers Raptors. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will see you then.